Hello, sunshine. I'm Alexi Lalas, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This is yet another special instant reaction live show following the U.S. men's national team friendly versus Australia, which just concluded with a 2-1 victory for the good guys. Again, the World Cup is 240 days away. But first, joining me as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how you doing on this? What are we looking at here? October 14th in the year 2025.
I am doing well. The big question everybody is wondering about, given the way you started our last podcast, is did you care about this game tonight?
Yeah, so if you listen to the show or you tuned in just for the one show, you will know. And if you don't, I'll just give you a real quick synopsis. Yours truly. I feel like I am pretty bullish and excited and energetic about the team, even when it's not doing well. And I just found myself in this state of malaise after the game, questioning why I should care, given all of the excuses, given all of the angst and a little bit of the way that I have been irked about the way Mauricio Pochettino has gone about it. Look, winning is always going to make you feel better. But again, I am left after this game asking myself, okay, well, there's a litany of excuses, right? It wasn't the full team. We're missing 4 or 5 potential starters. Balogun didn't start. Christian Pulisic only played 20 minutes. We have Cristian Roldan. Is Cristian Roldan going to be starting for us in the World Cup? And so
You might.
listen, but I don't think that anybody looked at this team that was put out here today and said, if the World Cup started today, this is what we're going with. But this is what we went with. And I think that there's a lot of positives. But again, Mauricio Pochettino has made it very clear that it's about next summer. And so a couple of things I think stood out. We'll get to those, but that's my initial reaction. So that's a long way of saying I cared a little bit more, but I'm still a little gun-shy. I'm still a little gun-shy and holding off on the caring a little bit.
The one big takeaway, though, is the U.S. once again started in a back three tonight. So I think we can conclude that is the formation moving forward for this team.
All right, let's just get right into it, right? You want to go lineup or because I think there's a lot of people out there that, not like me, maybe are more positive about seeing that. And again, win sometimes papers over everything. Didn't start off great. U.S. once again making a mistake. And it's one thing if they just slice through you and it's just wonderful, beautiful play and you just get beat. That just happens. But these gifts that this team, regardless of who's on the field, seem to give out, and then they find themselves having to claw back. That's not something that anybody wants. This came off of a throw-in, a big old mess, and then nobody's clearing the ball. And again, I don't know if it's concentration or if it's, again, to your point, the continued adjustment of playing in this new formation and the difference in spaces. I thought it was interesting that Matt Freese continued on. You've talked a lot about how you think that Matt Turner, who is in camp, is going to pip him at the end. But we're running out of time here, and I think it says a lot that in this window, he started him both games and played it every single minute.
Yeah, so just to run through the lineup, it was Matt Freese in goal, the center backs, Miles Robinson, Chris Richards, and Mark McKenzie, Alex Freeman right wing back, Timmy Weah left wing back, James Sands and Cristian Roldan in the middle, and then Pulisic and McKennie underneath Haji Wright. So that's 6 changes from the last game against Ecuador. McKenzie for Ream, Freeman for Arfston, the 2 in the middle, Sands and Roldan for Morris and Tessman, and Pulisic for Tillman and Haji for Balogun. And Pulisic got hurt early in the first half, so then Luna had to come in for him.
And I actually thought, I know it would be sacrilege to say it, that the team looked better. Now, that is not me saying, I don't want you to clip this off and say that's me saying that the U.S. is better without Christian Pulisic. I think we established over time, and certainly there's plenty of people that would agree that he is, arguably, but you can certainly make that argument, the most important player for the U.S. But Luna does come on and provide a different type of feel. It's nice to know that he can do that if someone like Christian Pulisic isn't there to start the game or is hurt and not involved.
Remember, according to Stu Holden, Pulisic is the U.S.'s Messi.
When he said that last show, it didn't even register that was going to be a hot take. I know what he was saying. He wasn't saying that he is Messi, but every team kind of has that person that they look to. And you could go to Lewandowski for Poland, or whoever. So they have that one guy. I was on my travels. I just came from LAX, and on my travels, I was talking to a driver at one point, and we were talking about the U.S. And the only player that he knew when I brought him up was Christian Pulisic. And so he's, kind of the known player and will be the star. There will be stars that emerge. And so, yeah, I was a little disappointed. I hope that he's okay. He had all that rest this summer. He's been kicking ass over at AC Milan, but he lasted, 20 minutes today? And then we know he was carrying an ankle type of injury. But, I like I said, I enjoyed the way Luna came in and kind of grabbed a hold of the opportunity.
And before we get into individual performances, just my overall take on what you just said. I agree. The U.S. came out flat, and it took not only Australia scoring, but also some rough challenges by Australia to kind of wake up the U.S., including the one that injured Pulisic. The U.S. players were not happy with some of the rough play by Australia in the first half.
Yeah, and so that again, I try so hard not to grumpy old man things, but it was almost like it was an affront by the way, this is Australia, okay? This this is a team that certainly has had good players over the years, but if there's a stereotype, and there's plenty of truth in the stereotype, it's that they are going to be physical, and that they were, and that was some sort of surprise. That irritated me a little bit. But then the fact that, well, that should always be part of the US's game. And that they are going to kick Christian Pulisic, that's going to happen next summer. And it's always going to happen when you have big players. He understands that. He's going to have to deal with it. And yeah, you want players to, I guess, protect. And so you're looking at Chris Richards and others in the back for doing that. I don't want them doing stupid stuff, but if it turns into a down and dirty fight next summer at the World Cup, the U.S. has to have a gear or something that they can go to where they don't lose their mind, but they fight fire with fire and they bring the physical, because this team has the physical abilities to do that. And if they get knocked off their game, literally get knocked off their game because they come up against a more physical team, and we could have Australia in our group. That could be pulled out on December 5th in Washington, D.C. when the draw happens. So you better be ready for it if that's what they're going to bring.
And in terms of big winners tonight, Matt Freese, just for the fact that he started,
Yep.
because it's indicative of the fact that he is the clear-cut number one right now. And then, folks, whether you like it or not, Cristian Roldan is going to the World Cup. He started off poorly, but then grew into the game, had 2 assists. By the end, it was a very good overall performance for him. He does add things that Mauricio Pochettino is looking for, a toughness, a versatility in the midfield. So I think he's trending towards definitely being at the World Cup and having a role. And then the other big winner would be Haji Wright up top, who carried over his good form with Coventry into this game. 2 lovely finishes, and I think is clearly that third striker now ahead of Josh Sargent. I think it would be Balogun, Pepe, and Haji Wright if the World Cup was tomorrow.
Can we go back to Cristian Roldan just for a second?
Yep.
Because I told you I was traveling, and I actually had an appearance in Ireland. I went to Ireland for like 3 days. All right, I'm happy that I have these opportunities, but it also kind of hurts me to go to a place like that you kind of want to go around. I didn't see a whole lot, but I flew 11 hours. I came right to the studio to do our show here. So if I'm a little loopy, give me a break. But I had a really good time. But I was following everything that was going on with the lead up to the game as I'm coming into coming into LAX, and obviously the 11 comes out, and Cristian Roldan is in it, and I'm going back and forth on X with the folks as I'm wont to do, and the people that just cannot fathom a U.S. men's national team that features in any capacity a Cristian Roldan in a 22, an 11, or even a 26 for that matter. They were out in full force. And, somebody was saying to me, Cristian Roldan, a player with 0 technical ability, and he's starting. And this person over here was so angry. And my point to him and others was, number one, that is an incredibly and demonstrably wrong statement. And I think it's also incredibly disrespectful for a player who plays professional. 2, I kind of wish that more of our players and more of our quote unquote more talented players had even half of Cristian Roldan's fight and attitude. And number 3, I do think that if Cristian Roldan was the exact same player, but doing it in a mid-table Bundesliga team or doing it over in the Eredivisie or even Belgium for that matter, people would not say anything. They would not have a problem with him. But specifically because he is playing in MLS, there is this bias against him. Nothing he can do about it except go on the field and do good things. And I think he is a big winner, to your point, as he's trying to hold on to that spot. Comes on, gets 2 assists. First one, really nice assist into Haji Wright, who was starting, and then really quick thinking in the second half, also to Haji Wright to play that ball in, and then Haji had plenty of work to do. So I think a big game for Cristian Roldan, and I think he deserves. I, I I think he deserves respect, and he is kind of a Rodney Dangerfield of this team at this point.
And then in terms of the subs, Tessman, Morris, Arston, Luna, who we mentioned in the first half, Aronson, and Balogun were the players that came on. I agree with you. Luna had some nice moments, and I thought Aronson played well too when he came on. So
Yep.
those would be the two standouts from a
And he
substitute
kind of
standpoint.
had to because he was kind of on the outs. And again, the pendulum can swing different ways. As we stand here, we have I say 2 more windows with 2 games in them because that June window is so weird because it's so close to the World Cup. I know there will be games and they will be friendlies, but players are trying not to get hurt and doing all that. So really, for all intents and purposes, we have 4 more games after tonight's game.
And you talk about versatility. Aronson initially came on for Weah as a left wing back, spent a little bit of time there, and then when Arston came on for McKennie, that pushed Aronson up the field into those two behind the center forward. So yeah, that's something that Pochettino probably likes about him. Brendan Aronson is a guy that can play multiple roles.
Couple questions for you. We've talked a lot about Weah and where he's going to show up. I think he and I think Weston McKennie are trying to figure out where they fit. I think Weston actually did a better job tonight. I still think, I don't know, Timmy Way is probably looking around going, God, I had it really good. It was all kind of set up for that right-hand side where I was, but he just can't seem to kind of figure out exactly how he fits into this system.
Absolutely. I raised this issue in a previous pod. Would Pochettino really trust an Alex Freeman or a Max Arston to start a World Cup match? And I'm getting the feeling that Weah right now is the backup at both right wing back and left
Hmm.
wing back. If either Dest or Jedi is out for a game, he would be the one to start in those roles. So yeah, even in the national team, he's become this jack of all trades too, like he is at club level.
I mean, we talk about goals, and they can certainly shade things. We've also talked about Haji Wright and what he was. He was kind of out in the wilderness for a while, and he's just been on fire in terms of club. But we talk about the championship. We talk about those things. I think this was a big game for him in that I think he's going to be in the stable of strikers that Pochettino is going to look to, especially with the kind of regression from a Sargent. Now Pepe's still out there waiting in the wings, and I think he will have a say when all is said and done. But again, time's a ticking. This was a huge game for Haji Wright. I thought he took both of his goals really well. Had a lot of work to do, but it was really kind of beautiful and smooth, that second goal. The way, you're saying, all right, you're in. And everybody's saying, shoot it. And he said, no, I'm going to bring it back. But the way that he brought it back and sat the defender down, but then more importantly, just it doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be placed and put that in the corner. So I think he is a big winner tonight.
Yeah, and I agree with you on McKennie better tonight, but I still question that role further up the field for him. So he's still a guy that's trying to figure out his role here in this formation. And then let's talk about the back three because you've raised concern, especially after that Enner Valencia goal for Ecuador the other
Mhm.
night. Again tonight, the Australia goal, really poor defending from multiple center backs back there. And then Richards got nutmegged in the second
Yeah.
half. It wasn't a great night for that back three.
I mean, Richards has been. We've talked a lot over the last year about his progression and his evolution and how good he has gotten. And he's kind of come out of his shell and matured in the way that he plays. Doesn't mean that he has perfect games. Nobody does, and I still think that he can get better. That's the good thing. I still think that there is a ceiling with him, but he, like others, are changing now. Keep in mind that Tim Ream was not out there, and that type of connection, to the extent that there is one, that that went away. But Chris Richards was interesting in the way that he was talking over this last week, and the way that he is looking at himself, but also the way that he is looking at what needs to be done in these friendly games leading up to the World Cup.
Doug McIntyre, incidentally, just came out with a really nice piece on Chris Richards. We're going to have Doug on the pod tomorrow to talk about a bunch of different things, and we're going to ask him about that piece. Yeah, Richards, I didn't love his performance tonight, but he's clearly become a leader on this
Mhm.
team. Just the body language, when Australia was having those rough challenges, he was the first one to step in there to defend his teammates. So there's something
Well,
to be
like we
said
said,
for
we'll
that.
talk on the show tomorrow with Doug McIntyre, but at one point, Chris Richards said his goal was to be the best center back for the national team. And I love that. It's kind of lofty. You can see it here. I want to be remembered as the best defender to ever play for the national team. I love that. I certainly think it's within his capabilities. Some of it's you control of it, some of it you don't. Some of it's relative to how well the team does in the World Cup. So, next summer, you do really, really well and you're a star and you shine. Believe me, I can tell you from experience, that kind of goes into how you're ultimately assessed. But I think he's grown so much. And I like the way that he's thinking about that. He also talked about there are no friendlies. Everybody always kind of says that. It's hard to manufacture the pressure and obviously the consequences. They just don't exist when it comes to the friendlies, which is why it's been so difficult and maybe a little frustrating for us when we're looking at these games to guard against reading too much into it, but it's all we have at our disposal. And so we got to read something into it.
Who is he trying to usurp as the greatest defender in U.S. national team history? Who is your number one?
Ugh, let's see. I think Eddie Pope. I can make an argument for Eddie Pope, Marcelo Balboa, Carlos Bocanegra, Uche. No, not Uche. Guccianyewu. Yeah, I mean, those. Am I missing somebody? Who am I missing?
You're missing a guy from '94 who partnered Marcelo Balboa.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just I will always assume when you ask me these questions that I'm already above. So there's the Rushmore down here, and then there's a whole extra carving that's just kind of above it in the way that I think about these.
All right, so overall, this window, it wasn't. It kind of had a similar feel to
Yeah,
September. It was still experimental. You were hoping perhaps that there was a discernible step up in sort of how close we came to putting out the strongest 11. So now, are you hoping November is that, or are you sort of given up on that
given up.
notion?
I've given up. I have resigned myself to the fact that Mauricio Pochettino is going to continue to experiment, leading all the way up to the World Cup. And again, that in and of itself isn't necessarily wrong or a bad thing. It's just the way that it was, the way that he intimated about what he was going to do. This is just very, very different. And I think that makes it fair to criticize. And I kind of want to see him kind of lay it down and say, I am going to use this next window or these games as if the World Cup is happening. And I'm going to bring everything that I can possibly bring in, and then I'm going to start who I think for that game is the best possible 11. And there's not going to be excuses, and it's not going to be, well, I don't want to play them too many minutes, or they got a knock here or anything like that. Now, there's a risk because people see a Christian Pulisic, and yeah, we can put him in bubble wrap and mothballs until next summer, and he doesn't ever touch the field lest he get hurt. But that's not realistic. It's not realistic for him or any big time player. You got to be smart, of course. But again, we don't have qualifying. We don't have a lot of games. And so I I worry about just flicking a switch or putting on the tap and expecting the power of the water to be there. I hope it is, but it seems that that's ultimately what is going to happen. Now, it'll be a much more informed decision or flicking of the switch, if you will, because of all the information that Pochettino has. But it's getting down.
Now, Pochettino made an interesting comment after the Ecuador match.
Mhm.
He said, "We are here talking about actions, concepts, formations, things like this. After 1 year, I'm so happy that we aren't talking about other things like commitment, attitude, things in the past we were talking about. I think that is a massive step." Do you agree that the U.S. has sort of put to bed this whole question of whether the players care? Have you sensed a different feel in these last couple of windows that there is more of an intensity and a commitment there on the part of the players?
Yeah, I think some of it's fair, and some of it's subjective. Like whatever I see or feel that gets me, then that's caring. That's what I attach caring to. Um, but and I'm a little hesitant to question whether somebody cares or if they care in the same way that I cared or anybody else. Maybe you just do it differently, and that's fine. Ultimately, the results are going to be equated with caring. So I do think that there was a lull in this team. I think actually to compliment Mauricio Pochettino, I do think that he has come in and given it a little bit of a jolt and awakened people and people that, whether it was by design or not, were content, if you will, and giving them a little kick in the ass. And I think that this team collectively and individually needed a kick in the ass. So I think that's a good thing from Mauricio Pochettino. Whether they care, I mean, I don't know about the purity test for caring and what you have to do. Some people attach it to actions or screaming and yelling or I don't know, singing the national anthem or whatever it ends up being. Maybe it's a combination of a lot of those things. But ultimately, what ends up happening is caring is often equated with a good performance and a winning performance.
Speaking of the national anthem, did you catch tonight's
I
rendition?
no, I was landing as the national anthem was going on, but I heard tell of it. It was interesting, shall we say?
Yes, interesting. We'll leave it at that. The next two games for the U.S. in November, friendlies against Paraguay and Uruguay. Two good tests. Paraguay finished qualifying very strong. Gustavo Alfaro doing a terrific job there. And Uruguay, we know, beat the U.S. at the Copa America. And there's no friendlies with Uruguay. You better be ready
Yeah,
to bring
right.
it that night.
Where are
So
these games here? Pennsylvania.
Paraguay is Chester, Pennsylvania. Uruguay is Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
We are going to, I'm sure we'll do post-game pods after each of those. We're going to effort Kenna Holden for those. If she
Yes.
can't make it, then we'll get Stu.
I mean, we just got to get a Holden on, right?
Yes.
At some point, we have to have it. Well, we hope in that next window that obviously the people are healthy. So a Christian Pulisic, a Jedi Robinson, hopefully he is better. Serginho Dest is back. Tyler Adams, I hope it all goes well with him and his wife and having the child, and he is back. So then we get a little bit, maybe to your point, maybe next window, if that happens. And again, that's a big if because we you know what it's the best laid plans are never come to fruition. But if you're close enough, then maybe we get a better idea of what that team ultimately looks like against good quality competition.
And Tyler's wife has not had the child yet, as far as we
I think
know.
we would have heard about it, right? So, I mean, they would have made it public. So
Interesting.
I hope I hope everything's good. I hope everything's good over there. So we'll put another window to rest. Again, I don't know how much we learned. It was fun. I still remain a little more cynical than I was. Not depressed, but cynical than I was. And I think I can argue fairly why that is. And there's a part of me asking, why should I care about these things as opposed to, it's good. Somebody asked me today, is Mauricio Pochettino on the hot seat? No, no. Even if they had lost this game, he's not on the hot seat because nothing matters until next summer. And that's where he's going to be judged. Now, he might get pressure, he might get criticism, but he's not on the hot seat by any stretch of the imagination. And ultimately they won.
Now, one team that was generating buzz was the U.S. under 20s, but they bowed out of the World Cup on Sunday, suffering a 3-1 quarterfinal defeat to Morocco. It's the fifth straight edition of this tournament in which the U.S. goes out in the quarterfinals. Cole Campbell scored the U.S. goal from the penalty spot. Boy, Morocco's having a moment, huh? They beat the
More
U.S.
than a
at the
moment. I mean,
Olympics.
men's,
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely. They're in the semis of this competition. They'll face France, Argentina, Colombia is the other semifinal. Overall thoughts on another quarterfinal run for the U.S. at the Under 20 World Cup?
I mean, it's the hope that'll kill you, right? Don't get me again to care. In general, I don't care a whole lot about developmental soccer and young players. I mean, I don't. It's not that I don't appreciate what they do, and it's not that I'm not supporting them, but I want to see the finished article. And so, are we now bullish and excited about what's happening because of this? Because they've just done the exact same thing that we've always done. Although they had some good results. We've had good results in the past. But are you looking at this now as, oh my God, the future is so bright. We got to wear shades.
No, I will say the U.S. was the better team in this game. They gave up some ridiculous goals, frankly. They got to be frustrated because they were on the front foot, and,
Right.
and I thought we were headed towards victory, and then just some
Some interesting
blunders at the
goalkeeping.
back. Yes. Matt Doyle wrote a really good piece about this team a few days ago. He rated all the players almost like football recruits, assigning like stars 1 through 5.
Uh-huh.
And his conclusion was lots of good players that project to be solid pros, but there wasn't really a star on this team that is going to be like a major impact player for the senior team. So one could point to that and say, well, then what are you really accomplishing here? But,
No,
strengthening the pool overall and depth and all that, I think that's
and just
important.
because I'm not excited and we're not completely going gaga about what the potential is for the future. Doesn't mean that one or a couple of them aren't going to come to fruition and aren't going to go on and be great players and players that help the national team, which is ultimately the goal for any developmental type of team. But it's not like they wowed us. Nobody's attaching a golden generation moniker to the players that we saw. And from part of also the development is the development of a mentality to win every single game and to win every single tournament. And some of the best teams in the world, they have that, and it starts at a young age. And so they didn't do anything that hasn't been done before. As a matter of fact, given what they did, they kind of underperformed, as you were saying. And so that's I hope that's not again something that's then fostered and lives inside them.
Also in this window, we had plenty of World Cup qualifying. We'll go there next. We'll start in Africa. The group phase is in the books. So the 9 direct qualifiers to the World Cup ended up being Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Algeria, Ghana, Cape Verde, South Africa, Senegal, and Ivory Coast. And then the 4 teams that will go to the playoffs in November: Nigeria, Cameroon, Gabon, and DR Congo. Then one of those teams will end up in the Intercontinental Playoffs. Cape Verde, though, the big story. What an achievement. The second smallest nation to qualify for a World Cup.
Yeah, so I was, putting up my ex congratulating Cape Verde, and you go and you look up how much or what the population is, and it's everywhere between 520,000 to 600,000 on the actual um, island nation because it's a bunch of different islands there. So I just put like around 600 because always underestimate when it comes to the population. The interesting thing is that there's I think close to 2 million Cape Verdeans around the world. A lot of them live in the United States. Actually, that's the number one place for the diaspora. And up there in the Boston area, Massachusetts area, that's predominantly where that community is. So it'll be interesting to see when they get their ball drawn out again in December 5th at the draw, where they end up playing. And if there was a way for them to play up there in the Northeast, that would be massive. But there are more Cape Verdeans living outside of Cape Verde than actually live on Cape Verde.
There are only 2 people that weren't moved by the images of Cape Verde qualifying for the World Cup: me and your mother.
Why? What did my mom say?
Remember, we're both against the
Oh, right, yes.
expansion. Everybody's saying, "Isn't it great? 48 allows for
I
teams like this to."
I thought it was cool. But what this elicited as these things were happening from some cynics out there, whether it's my mother or anybody else. My mother's much more a cynic from the money grab aspect of it, but there was also some competitive cynics out there that were poo-pooing this because, oh, we're going to have all these little teams and therefore we're going to get completely lopsided results. And my point to like this one was that, oh, there are a lot of bad teams. There were a lot of bad teams when it was only 32 teams in the World Cup. Now we're going to 48 teams in the World Cup, and there's going to be 8-0, that would be 8-0 games in group play. And my point to this person was, well, you seem incredibly sure about what is going to happen next summer. And if you're so sure, then it should be also incredibly easy for you to make a bunch of money betting on those blowouts that are going to happen. So congratulations to this person that's going to make a lot of money. Or I submit to you that that might not happen. Now, I'm not saying that Cape Verde is going to go in and win the World Cup, but again, I don't ever want to stand in the way of somebody having that moment. Can you imagine that moment? I talked before about when Panama went to the World Cup. The men's team went to the World Cup for the first time. Can you imagine when Cape Verde is there and that national anthem is played and all the Cape Verdeans, whether it's people that have come over from the islands or whether the people that live, like I said, all around the world that are coming to watch this team. Can you imagine the pride that they're going to feel in that moment? Oh, and by the way, they qualified for the World Cup. All right, they went through the process and they went directly to the World Cup. So congratulations to them. Small but mighty. The Sharks, what are they? The Blue Sharks or whatever. Tell me what. I'll figure that one out going forward. I think it was some of the Sharks. So, but we'll have it by the time they show up.
And then South Africa qualifying made you reminisce on X about the 2010 World Cup. You still have fond memories of your time spent in that country.
Shabalala. Yes. South Africa versus Mexico in the first game. This was, in 2010, I was working for ESPN at the time, and it was a summer of um, Vuvuzelas. Remember the Vuvuzelas? By the way, no Vuvuzelas this next summer. We can leave those out. We welcome back South Africa, by the way, for the first time since 2010 when they hosted. So 16 years it will be, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, Shabalala scored just a rocket of a goal, and it just sent the celebration was wonderful, and it seems like yesterday, but it's kind of a long time ago. And so I'm glad that they are back, and it's going to be fun to see them now back in a World Cup. Obviously, a World Cup here. We'll see where they get placed and who they get placed against.
And Nigeria is still alive. On a recent pod, I reminisced about those 90s Nigeria teams, and somebody on X told me that there's actually a documentary about those Nigeria teams from the 90s. I haven't replied yet, but I will definitely check that out to whoever sent it to me.
Really? Okay.
So Nigeria is still in the mix in that playoff.
But they're going to have to do it the hard way.
Yes. We go to Asia next. We had two more teams punch their tickets there. Qatar beat the United Arab Emirates 2-1 to qualify, and Saudi Arabia earned a 0-0 draw with Iraq, which is all they needed. So Saudi Arabia and Qatar off to the World Cup. Saudi Arabia coached by our good friend Hervé Renard.
Oh, yeah.
Qatar coached by former Spain boss Lopetegui.
I mean, it's not a World Cup without an Hervé Renard there, and him in his chest and white shirts. So I'm glad for that. Bring it.
And then we go to Europe, where we have our first European nation punch their ticket. It's England. They qualified by virtue of a 5-0 away win over Latvia. Harry Kane got two. Gordon and Eze among the scorers as well. So Thomas Tuchel and company off to the World Cup. You've talked about how next summer will be the 250th anniversary of American independence, and how that's going to be sort of a theme throughout the tournament.
Yep.
It would be somewhat ironic if England
don't think that I haven't thought about this, Mosse. So yes, congratulations to all of my English friends. Cheers to all my mates out there. If you are going to make the trip over to see your England team here in a World Cup for the first time, by the way, because in 1994, England famously did not qualify. Horrible failure not to qualify for the World Cup. So this is the first time that they are qualifying for a World Cup in the United States. If you do come over, we will allow you, and we encourage you to wrap yourself in that flag. Wave it as much as you want. But if it is coming home, Mosse, it's got to come through the greatest country in the world on our 250th birthday. And don't think for a second that I haven't thought of that nightmare scenario where in this World Cup that's happening in the United States, in my home country, my quote-unquote good friends, the English, were to finally have it come home. I don't think I could bear that. Anybody but the English. But we will welcome them as one of the participants, one of the 48 participants. Congratulations. They had no problem qualifying this time.
If I'm not mistaken, the issue in 94, they were in a qualifying group with Norway and the Netherlands. And Norway was absolutely lights out and grabbed one of the spots, and it left the Netherlands and England to battle for the other, which the Dutch ended up getting. And Norway, again, this time around, look like they're going to qualify, and it's going to send Italy to the playoff.
Well, it's an expanded World Cup, too. So England should, thank their lucky stars and Gianni Infantino and FIFA for, bringing people in. But far be it from me to deny England the opportunity to stand there and to sing that anthem and to have that moment for their country. So I'm glad that this is an inclusive and inviting type of World Cup that is bringing people and teams that haven't in the past qualified for World Cups, giving them the opportunity to have that moment, like little old England.
Now, Portugal were minutes away from qualifying, but they surrendered a late equalizer to Hungary in a 2-2 draw. Ronaldo did get both Portugal goals, so he has moved past your former teammate, Carlos Ruiz El Pescadito. Ronaldo now the all-time leading scorer in World Cup qualifying history. The 40th goal set the record, and then he actually got goal 41 as well.
But they did not qualify.
They did not qualify.
England's the only UEFA team that qualified so far, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And by the way, because we're an equal opportunity pod, there's a Messi record coming up later in the pod. Stay tuned for that. And then we go to CONCACAF next, where some sanity was restored. You might recall when we were going off the air on Friday, we talked about the fact that Suriname, Curacao, and Haiti were the three teams leading their respective groups. Honduras smashed Haiti 3-0 yesterday, so they vaulted to the top of that group. And then Jamaica is now in first place in their group because they beat Bermuda tonight, and Curacao was held to a draw by TNT. So the one group that's still interesting is Suriname went into Panama tonight, and they actually almost won. They were up 1-0 late. Panama did snatch a stoppage time equalizer, but the 1-1 draw keeps Suriname on top of that group. So Panama still with some work to do.
Interesting. I mean, we've talked so much about Panama, and they've been kind of our nemesis from a U.S. perspective. So a good team, but if you can't, we talked the other day about how Jamaica, we were really worried about Jamaica this summer, and now they're kind of cruising right now, as opposed to Panama, that we said, oh, they should have no problem, and now they're struggling. So you never know when you get into qualifying, it does strange things.
So we're up to 28 confirmed teams at the World Cup. We have 20 spots left to go, 15 from Europe, 3 from CONCACAF, and the 2 intercontinental playoff spots. So that's where we are heading into the November window.
And I keep mentioning the December 5th draw in DC, which, by the way, you can see on Fox. Almost all of the teams will be decided. There will be some playoffs that aren't decided until after, and so there'll be that TBD slot that who knows, we might get, others might get. It depends on what happens, but for the most part, you're going to know who's in your group, and therefore you're going to know when you're playing, and if you have travel plans, or if you're just kind of planning in general for what's happening, it'll all kind of come into focus then.
And then on the friendly front, as I see, by the way, Sean Sullivan furiously trying to
Yes.
update the rundown because this section hadn't been filled out yet. But yeah, Mexico and Ecuador are 1-1 at the half right now in Guadalajara. Ecuador played the U.S. to a 1-1 draw the other day, so we'll see how that one ends. And then Canada played to a 0-0 draw against Colombia in Harrison, New Jersey tonight. Colombia had smashed Mexico 4-0 the other night at AT&T Stadium, and Canada had lost to Australia, the team the U.S. beat tonight.
It's interesting that Mexico split their games because we know they're going to be playing all of their games in Mexico, but we also know how many games they actually play in the U.S. So this one is going on right now in Guadalajara, you said, right?
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, I mentioned that Australia beat Canada the other night. Australia had won 7 in a row going into tonight. So, lest anybody believe that the U.S. knocking them off is no big deal. They beat a team that was on a pretty good run that hadn't lost yet in 2025. 2 more for you. Argentina smashed Puerto Rico 6-0. McAllister and Lautaro each with 2 goals. Messi reached 60 international assists, surpassing Neymar for the all-time record. And you know who's third on that list?
Who?
Landon Donovan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No way.
Pretty good company for Landon with Messi and Neymar.
Who was Argentina playing today?
Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay. All right.
Are you going to insult Puerto Rico
No.
again as you did on Pedro
No.
Albizu Campos is turning over in his grave.
Oh, my goodness.
And,
No.
then just so I'm not accused of ducking this, Brazil did lose to Japan today, 3-2. It might surprise you because I'm usually pretty negative about these
Yeah.
things, but I'm actually nonplussed about this defeat. Ancelotti is still in getting a look at players mode. He made 8 changes from the South Korea match, made some subs in the second half that you wouldn't make if you were worried about the result. There were guys on the field for Brazil that I don't think are even going to go to the World Cup, much less start a game. So I still think the more relevant game in this window was South Korea when he put our strongest lineup out there and we won 5-0, played well. I still think we're trending in the right direction with Carlo Ancelotti.
Well, Carlo Ancelotti, like Mauricio Pochettino, is kicking it down to the world. He had said, just judge me next summer, okay? That's where we're really going to come to light. But they also went through a qualifying process, that team. So, all right, Mosse, anything before we head out of here?
So quick turnaround for us. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to preview the weekend and the club game. We got MLS Decision Day, Yanks abroad, some big Liverpool, Manchester United, Bayern, Dortmund. Looking forward to that. And we'll have Doug McIntyre on to talk about his Richards piece and other things that he gleaned from covering the U.S. during this window. Can I tell you, by the way, a neat little story from Saturday?
Yes, we haven't done a whole lot. We didn't do what we're watching or anything like that. But I do want to hear your story from.
So I did go to the Coliseum. I watched Michigan get spanked by USC, which was not a lot of fun. But with about 3 minutes left in the game, my Michigan buddies and I decided, let's get the hell out of here. So I'm
Wow, you're one of those.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was disgusted by that Michigan performance.
They didn't deserve your time.
No.
Okay.
So walking up the steps at the Coliseum, there's a guy wearing a USC jersey. He kind of taps me as I'm walking by, and I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm going to get taunted or something.
Because you're in the maize and blue,
yes,
right? Okay.
I'm wearing a Michigan jersey, Michigan hat on. I turn, I'm like, what? And he goes, you're the soccer guy, right?
I love that. Makes me so happy. Over the years, we've had all of these different stories, and I just love it. You'll be walking around the Grove or something, and somebody will come up. And I tell you, I travel a lot, and inevitably, I will meet somebody. In Ireland, I kid you not, I met somebody and said, "Oh, I'm a big listener to the pod."
Really?
Right? Say hello to Mosse. Right?
Wow.
So,
did he say with an Irish accent?
No, he was American. But but inevitably, everywhere I go, I will meet somebody And over the years, there's been more and more and more people. So,
Did you meet any of Keith Costigan's relatives over there? They're
no, I was with kind of my people in terms of the mutant gene. All right. So we're, less than 2% of the world. And inevitably each year people will send me the articles that come out each and every year saying that redheads are dying in terms of people that have red hair. And so my wife and I, we've tried to do our part replenishing the redheads out there. But, if we're going out, we're going out blazing. Anything before we go, my friend?
that's it.
All right, listen. Uh, yeah, I care. I care. I always care. Keep downloading, reviewing, subscribing, rating, doing all the different things that you do out there. As Mosse said, we'll be back tomorrow with a little longer pod, but we wanted to get this one out and have this one live after another successful outing from Mauricio Pochettino and company against Australia, 2-1 victory. A lot of interesting things that we talked about, and maybe some things will percolate overnight, and we'll talk about them in the harsh light of the new day tomorrow. Keep downloading, subscribing, rating, smashing up and down, left and right, double fisting over there on the old smash button on Spotify and YouTube and all the different things out there. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, and as always, my friends, size the day.